Time now.
Okay, it's 7 o'clock. First item on the agenda is for the board to hold a project and preliminary hearing on proposed projects. If you're interested in speaking, make sure that you have signed in the sheet in the back of the room, which will include your name and address. After the presentation by the administration or its advisors, there will be an opportunity for the public to make comments about the project. The notice of this project hearing was published as legal requirements on August 31st, 2022 in the Brookville American and the Brookville Democrat. At this time, Ms. Amber Orozco, the school board attorney, will explain the purpose of this hearing.
Pursuant to the Indiana Code, it's section 2026-737, if anybody wants to look it up. Sure. I'll start again. Pursuant to the Indiana Code, section 2026-737, before a school corporation may spend more than $1 million to build, repair, or alter a school building that will be financed by a lease or by bonds, it must hold a public hearing at which the explanation of the potential value of the project to the school corporation and the community are given. This public hearing and the adoption of resolutions are the beginning of that legal process. These resolutions establish the maximum financial terms for the proposed project.
We will now hear from Ms. Tammy Chavis, the superintendent, about the overview and the need for this project.
We've got 2 or 3 things on
the agenda as far as need. As you recall, back in February, Lancer and BB were here. They presented the facility study. We knew we had an issue with the chiller. I've already brought that to the board last board meeting. The chiller at the high school does need replaced. The estimate on that piece of equipment is $450,000, hence why we brought that in last board meeting to hire an architect for that process. As you're well aware, we are moving forward with solar. This presented an opportunity for us to move forward with a potential turf project on the football field that would support our football team and our soccer team, the band, baseball, softball, dance cats, and all of our youth programs would be available to use this. And then thirdly, as a result of that facility study, we looked at 3 buildings, particularly the high school and the middle school. There's a couple of areas where we do know we need some roof sections replaced as we move into the winter season. So 3 potential projects for this bond.
Okay, we'll now hear from Stifel and Nichols and Company Incorporated, our underwriter, about how the proposed project will be financed, and as well as information about the effect on the typical property taxpayer.
Yep. Good evening, Matt Shoemaker with Stifel. Good to see you all again. I have several pages. Sorry, I'm blocking you. I'm going to stand over here. I have several pages of a presentation I will walk everyone through that has financial information. This does not need to be formal. I'm happy to answer any questions as they come up. So if you have questions, feel free to stop me and we can walk through it. So first place that we always start is just outstanding debt. So as of today, this is where Franklin County stands in terms of their debt service fund. So all of the payments coming out of the debt service fund are shown on this screen. It goes all the way back to the 2011 QZABs up through last year's bond issue, the 2021 GO.
Matt, could you put it on slideshow so that's bigger for us?
I can, I think. There is, it's on my second screen, so I can't.
Oh, I'm sorry. I think it's up there at the top. There.
How's that? Okay. So, based on all of your outstanding bond issues, you can see where your payments are from 2022. They're staying level in 23, 24, slight drop in 25, and then a significant drop in 26 as the majority of those 2021 GO bonds are paying off. Now you'll look at this screen and notice that the payments are fairly level from 22 to 23 to 24, which at first glance you would think we don't really have any room to add additional payments without a tax rate increase. But we've put together this slide. This shows a history of Franklin County's net assessed value. As we have talked in the past, net assessed value is the biggest determining factor in the school's tax rate. If the net assessed value can grow, that means the levy can grow proportionally while keeping that tax rate stable. The goal in this community has always been to keep that tax rate steady when possible. So as we approach this potential bond issue, it's going to be with keeping an eye on keeping that tax rate neutral. We do not want that tax rate to jump. Going back to 2016 through 2023, you can see that the assessed value went down ever so slightly in 17 and 18. In 2019, you grew just a little under 3%, which is a good growth rate. Back under 1% in 20, 2.5% in 2021, and in 2022, you saw your best year at just over 4%. We got to this year, and we have seen this statewide. This isn't unique to Franklin County, but the assessed value jumped over 17%. A couple factors that go into that. One is just the prices of homes. What have happened the last couple years, they have been going up. The other one is agriculture. There was a reassessment of the base value of farmland about 7 or 8 years ago that brought the value, the base rate, what farmers actually pay taxes on, down significantly. That is actually swinging back the other way, and that base rate is now climbing a little bit. And so we've seen those two factors really reflected in that assessed value in 2023. So as the assessed value grows, that presents an opportunity for the school corporation to potentially do bonds without increasing the tax rate.
What, I mean, I understand what you said about the farmland increasing. Is that the only thing that increased so we could have 17%?
So it'd be the farmland and then just the home prices. Yeah, absolutely. And this is, we've seen, I would say, on average, so still a couple counties that have not released their assessed value, but I would say you guys are right in the middle of what we've seen in terms of the growth rate, about 15 to 17%. We've had some school corporations grow 50%. We've had several grow 25+%. I can only think of 3 or 4 school corporations in the state that have grown less than 10%. So it has been a huge year for almost every school corporation across the board. Urban, suburban, rural, big, small, it doesn't matter. And most of that is due to what the home prices have done the last couple years, but then the agriculture is adding into communities like this to see an even higher assessed value growth rate.
Historically, have there been any times when there's been a decrease?
That is a great question. So, yes, but very, very few times. So coming out of the Great Recession, 08, 09, we saw some communities stagnate, even drop a little bit. We have seen rural school corporations over the last 5 or 6 years get hit pretty hard as that base rate that I talked about coming down. Outside of those few instances, if you look back through the history of what home prices have done, they very rarely come back down. Having said,
During stagflation, was that
what's that?
During stagflation, was that an incident that?
It certainly could have been. That would have been before my time. I don't have that history.
Oh,
No, I'm not saying that. That's before I was paying attention to all this good stuff. Moving forward, I would say that it is a risk that it potentially could come down now that we've seen what seemingly have seen home prices kind of top out. And we're going to talk about a way to potentially provide a buffer so if that does occur, we're not in a situation where the tax rate starts increasing. So this depicts the school corporation's projected tax rate. Now this was how it stood a couple months ago before we had your assessed value for pay 2023. And you can see this is broken down by the operations fund and the debt fund. From 22 to 23 to 24, there was actually projected to be a slight increase in 23 and 24. That goes back to your assessed value not potentially keeping up with the way the operations fund budget model works. I'm not going to go in the weeds in that, but there could potentially have been an opportunity or a potentiality that the tax rate would slightly go up due to the operations fund. It would have no impact on what you did with your debt fund. But as we stand here today, now that we know what your assessed value is, it has completely reset the financial tax rate picture of the school corporation, really every school corporation in the state, where the tax rate might have actually gone up if your assessed value didn't grow in pay 2023. Because it grew so much, it's now created a tax rate drop from 2022 to 23, which is why we're here tonight talking about a potential GEO bond in order to fill in the drop from 22 to 23 to get the school corporation funds for a potential project, but not increasing the tax rate at all. The school corporation is currently right at $1. So the goal moving forward would be to look at a potential $2 million general obligation bond. I know these colors aren't great, but we could fill in 23 and 24 with those repayment, get everything paid back in 2 years, keep the interest costs low because you can pay back so quickly, interest rates are lower, the faster you pay this back, and not increase the tax rate in 23 or 24. To your question, we are assuming that your assessed value would grow only 1% in 2024. That was essentially your 7-year growth rate history, the average. If this were to drop in 2024, you could get in a situation where that tax rate could go up a little bit. So if you grow by less than 1% or you actually drop, you could see that tax rate increase in 2024. Since we know the assessed value in 2023, we know exactly what that payment needs to be. But 2024 would be the risk that if home prices do come back down, assessed value comes down, you could see that tax rate increase.
What kind of gauge for the tax rate are you talking about there? Like 1%?
For
0.001?
for how much the tax rate could move or the assessed value growth?
No, the tax rate, how much could it move?
Well, that depends on what your assessed value does. So if you say you were going to lose a couple percentage points, you're talking about a couple pennies on your tax rate. So maybe instead of $1, you're going to $1.02. We're not talking going from $1 to $1.15 or $1.20 or anything significant like that. To take the risk off the table, and to give another year of history, we could pay this back over 3 years. You're still paying it back quickly. You're still staying with a low interest rate. You're paying slightly more interest because you're paying it back over 3 years instead of 2 years. But this takes the risk off the table of assessed value going down. Here, your assessed value could go down a full 5%, and you still would not go above the dollar tax rate that you're at right now. If you get to next year and your assessed value grows by the 1% that we are projecting or more, that's just going to make 2024 look a little bit better and will either reduce the tax rate or put the school in position to come back and take care of other components of the facility plan that Tammy had talked about. So while you're paying a little bit more interest, and we're talking, $25,000 or $30,000 in totality, this takes the risk off the table of that assessed value coming back down next year for whatever reason and getting the school corporation in a situation where that tax rate might increase. So this is a little bit more of a conservative route today. This isn't anything you need to decide tonight. We're simply providing the information so that you can deliberate and figure out what you want to do. But there are a couple different options when it comes back, or when it comes down to paying this back. So you could do it extremely quickly in 2 years, hopefully keep that tax rate steady, or we could pay it back in 3 years and know that something horrible would have to happen that we have never seen before with assessed values for that tax rate to increase in 2024. Most likely, this would still leave you tax rate flexibility come next year if there are additional items on that facility study that need to be taken care of. Last page for me. While you don't have a resolution tonight, these are the financial parameters that you will see in your upcoming meeting. So this has the maximum par amount of the bonds at $2 million. Doesn't obligate you to borrow the full $2 million. It just means you can't borrow in excess of $2 million. Estimated cost of issuance, these are upfront professional fees. This number is probably slightly high, but we're using a conservative figure, $100,000. That would leave proceeds available for hard and soft project costs, the money actually going into the projects at $1.9 million. Estimated interest rate is 5%. Again, this is a worst case scenario. If you were to do this today, you're probably in the 3% range, probably even a little bit lower. Given you're not issuing these today, we want to make sure that we're staying a little bit conservative. Rates have been rising.
On the 3 years, what would the interest rate?
So between the 2 and the 3 years, there's not going to be a big difference in the actual interest rate. You're just going to pay a little bit more interest because you're paying down the principal over a longer period of time. You're talking the difference of maybe 5 basis points, 0.05. There's not going to be much of a difference between a 2 and a 3 year. It's all about getting it paid down quicker is where the interest savings would be. Estimated interest expense on that 5%, just under $160,000. In the resolution, you'll see this line. It says the estimated maximum tax rate impact of just over 14 cents. What that looks at is it's just the statutory formula. So it takes the largest payment that you'll make in any 1 year and simply divides it by your current assessed value. It does not take into account your assessed value growth or how some of your other bonds will be paying off in the future. The actual net impact to the taxpayer, what the taxpayers will see on their tax bill, is going to be 0. So this will be structured in a manner to hit that exact tax rate next year based on the assessed value growth that you saw or will see for pay 2023. So statutory formula, what will actually be reflected on taxpayers' tax bills. That's all I have. Questions for me?
Will we get copies of these? Can we,
This presentation?
yes,
Yes.
Yeah,
can we have,
absolutely.
I'm not seeing that very well
Oh, I'm
tonight.
sorry. No,
I'm sorry.
The colors,
sent it to me later.
the
Okay.
colors aren't popping.
No, that's fine. She says she's got it, so, thank you.
I think Matt has to run, so if anybody has, he's got another board meeting to go to. So, you want to give that to Francis? Thank you.
Absolutely.
Okay, we'll now open up for public hearing. There's no one that signed up for it.
Mr. Isaacs, no one signed?
Okay. The board appreciates the time and interest in the projects and the future of our community. Ms. Orozco will now summarize the project resolution.
So up for you guys tonight is a project resolution just for your signatures. The resolution is required when the school corporation is planning to spend more than $1 million per building. It contains the estimated hard and soft construction costs and the cost of issuance, and it establishes the total project cost. It also contains the estimated tax impact, which you've seen.
Okay. Need a motion to adopt the project resolution.
So moved.
Francis, need a second. Ms. Foster, any discussion? Okay. Ms. Orozco now will summarize a preliminary.
Take a
With the
vote.
vote.
Oh. Yeah. All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed? 7-0. And now Ms. Orozco will summarize the preliminary bond resolution.
You guys are making it easy so far. The next resolution that we have is a preliminary bond resolution, and that contains the project costs, the maximum interest rate, and the other financial terms such as the first interest payment date and the maturity dates of those bonds.
Can I have a motion to adapt the project resolution?
So moved.
Mr. Bromback, need a second?
Second.
Second. No.
Katie did, Katie did.
Katie. Any
I'm
discussion?
sorry. I didn't.
All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. 7-0. Now you'll summarize, Ms. Roscoe will summarize the reimbursement resolution.
Last one you've got, guys. The reimbursement resolution contains the project cost and that the school corporation will use the proceeds from the bonds to reimburse for costs of renovations and site improvements.
Could I have a motion to adapt the reimbursement resolution? Sharon, I need a second. Terry, any discussion? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. 7-0. At this time, I'd like to adjourn the public hearing. Item 2 is additional appropriation hearing.
We are at this time requesting additional appropriations in both the education and operations fund of $500,000. This is due to, at the time last year when the budget was created, the budget was created very tight, and as you know, things have changed since then with the bond that we issued last year and also our ADM growing, which increased our state funding, which allowed us to do additional things this year. So with that, we are requesting to be able to spend an additional appropriation this year for the remainder of this year.
Open for public comment? None? We'll now close the appropriation hearing. Item number 3, public hearing on the 2023 budget.
So with that, also for next year of 2023, I am proposing a budget of the education fund of $15,700,000, operations fund of $7,500,000, and debt service fund of $4,017,607 for a total 2023 budget of $27,217,607.
Okay, bus replacement plan?
Bus replacement plan, what we do is we have a 5-year plan where we replace 2 buses a year. At least we plan on that and ask for your approval on that. We have not, in my years in this position, we have ordered 1 bus and we'll be getting that in February. But we will do that as need, but we need to have 2 buses on per year just in case. As we realign transportation, we might look at doing away with some of the corporation routes to save money as well. But we need to have this approved because we have the 5-year plan, just in case.
Okay. Capital projects and capital assets plan.
Capital projects, we are looking at a truck. We have, since in my years here in this position, we have junked actually 3 corporation vehicles. We've only replaced 1. We need to look at replacing another truck this coming year. Water heater at the football complex. Projector replacement for the first floor of the middle school. Portable stoplight possibly for 101. Concrete walks and curbs, walk-in freezer, BES, and eliminate the pole vault and replace touch panels at Mount Carmel.
Okay. Open for public comment?
I have another.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry.
Okay, we also will be fiber optics, ongoing payment on that. Each year we pay for that. Corporation-wide asphalt as needed. Roof replacement that we spoke about earlier. Have that on there. And corporation-wide HVAC in case we have something go down in the age of the buildings that tends to happen. Any questions for me?
When you said we were doing away with corporation routes, is that doing away with the entire route or transferring it over to a private?
It would consolidate into our bidders, depending on, our enrollment and such, but that'll be talked about later as far as what we're doing with that as our contract ends with our corporate or our drivers.
Any more discussion?
We're just trying to run more efficiently.
No,
What we're trying to do.
I just didn't know where those routes were going to appear, whether you're.
Some will be picked up
consolidated or-
by the contract drivers.
Okay. Any public comment? Okay, we'll now close the public hearing following public comments. Item number 4, call to order. And for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Be seated. Item number 6, the consent agenda items. The minutes, expenditures, donation and grants, field trip request, and personnel. It was in enclosure 6. Any discussion on them? Need a motion to accept them? Sharon? Need a second? Terry? All in favor, raise your hand. I see you, Grant.
Keep trying to hide mine, Terry, tonight.
Okay, item number 7, financial report, corporation financial report.
The education fund balance as of August 31st, 2022 was $3,549,087.25. A year ago, this balance was $1,540,653.29. The operations fund balance as of August 31st, 2022 was $982,696.01. A year ago, this balance was $1,398,051.50. The investment interest earned year-to-date as of August 31st, 2022 was $16,927.47. This is compared to $10,698.48 a year ago.
Okay, any discussion? Cafeteria report.
The cafeteria fund balance as of August 31st, 2022 was $645,393.37. This is compared to $288,367.52 a year ago.
Is there,
I have a question. So last month, the cafeteria fund balance was $528,000.
Mhm.
It grew pretty
It was
big.
the summer school reimbursement that she received.
From the state.
From the state, yes.
Okay.
And so
So
that,
that kind of growth is not expected month-over-month.
no, it's not. And also, she did want me to mention that from here on out, things have changed in the cafeteria since last year. All of the students are either free and reduced or they are paying. It is not free for every student anymore, so her reimbursements will be significantly lower. So with that and the cost of food increasing, this buffer will be very nice for her moving forward. But as Mr. Isaac stated, there are a few things on the capital projects plan as far as new freezers and things like that she's looking into doing this next year.
okay. Latchkey report.
The latchkey fund balance as of August 31st, 2022 was $6,906.96. This is compared to $3,543.94 a year ago. Also, I received enrollment for these at BES. These are all just averaging as well as of right now. BES is averaging around 30 students. Laurel is averaging around 22, and Mount Carmel is averaging between 27 and 30. That does include staff children as well, so not all of these are full pay students, but these are students that are utilizing the program.
Thank you for the totals. I always want to know the enrollment.
Yeah.
But I would like to congratulate Mr. Isaacs and Ms. Chavis. The last 2 years, they have worked very hard at reducing our expenditures, and with the bond that we done and reducing the expenditures, it's nice to see growth in the money instead of being negative or around zero. So with their diligence, we've kind of weathered the storm a little bit. Plus the ADM really helped out a lot this year. Okay, celebrations.
I'm gonna have to say no, she doesn't.
Stand by me. So we're gonna celebrate the Educator of the Month first, and then over here, and then we'll do celebrations. So, it was about a week ago, I went, and she's the car rider lady. She dismisses individuals, and I told her, I said, what are you doing September 12th at 7 o'clock? She goes, that's my birthday. So it's her birthday today. So
Happy birthday.
Perfect. So I told her she was chosen as the Educator of the Month and nominated by a parent, and she had tears. So she is in her 8th year of teaching for Franklin County Schools and her 10th year in education overall, a bachelor's degree in elementary ed, and I think you even did a stint as my ag teacher at the high school back in the day. She's currently working on her master's in special ed. She was, as I said, she was nominated by a parent. The parent said, Mrs. Hoffman goes above and beyond any other educator to help my child. When we moved to Mount Carmel, my child disliked school, and because of Mrs. Hoffman, my child is now a totally different person. Mrs. Hoffman really cares about her students and their success. She's serving as the co-captain of the Vicobotics. Who's your partner in crime?
Actually, we've gained 3.
Oh.
So we have Chelsea Stinger, Paula Goins, and then, Paula Grubb, and then Jean Goins.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we always ask the Educator of the Month what they most love about their job. Mrs. Hoffman says the best part of her job is helping students develop their own self-worth and helping them realize that they can do anything they set their mind to. She also loves working with some amazing teachers and paraprofessionals who also want our students to succeed in everything they do. So join me in congratulating Mrs. Eva Hoffman. You have some guests you'd like to introduce?
Just my husband.
Oh, just the husband.
Partner in crime.
Go to your drive. That little pad right there.
Eva,
No. Yeah, you gotta take a picture.
So at the beginning of the summer, Mrs. New asked me if she could paint a mural in the cafeteria. And I said, send me a copy of it so I can get an idea of what you're talking about. A couple days later, she's still there painting. A couple weeks later, she's still there painting. A couple months later, she's still painting. And I go, what are you doing? And she goes, well, you need to come out and see. So I went out there, I don't know, a week or two before school started.
Yeah, a week before school started.
Yes, and every single hallway was painted. And if you haven't been there, I encourage you to go see it as board members. It's phenomenal. So I asked her just to kind of give a backstory and some pictures. So I'm going to have you put this on so people that are listening by stream will be able to hear you.
and also to add, it kind of got chipped up a little bit. She was at the building till 11 o'clock at night putting lacquer.
Yeah, so
I did ask for a few.
Excuse me.
I did ask permission to do a couple, and you'll see that that kind of exploded a little bit. And she also told me just to pick a couple tonight, but as you can see by the turnout of staff, you're going to see everything. So we'll go quick. I didn't do this by myself. Amber Dunham is my technology coordinator. Carol Blake is my art teacher. Patience Dunham is a high school student that when this started did not have permission to help us, but you'll see a little ways into this, I was like, all right, show me what you can do. I bought wall paint in case Tammy hated it, that we could paint over it all, because I wasn't sure, because I did go a little above. And I was like, if you mess up, we'll just paint over it, and we'll start over. Becky joined us. She is my new library assistant, as did Brandy Murray. Did I forget anybody? I can't see. But that is the crew that started. So this is in our cafeteria. If you've been at Laurel, it used to be a woodland scene. And Carol, halfway through, said, Shannon, I really hate that woodland scene. And I said, Tammy didn't give me permission to paint over that. And she's like, but I painted it. And I said, okay, then I guess we can go over it. Let's go look. And she said, I dated it. I painted it in 2003. I said, wow, that was 19 years ago. That's when my son was born. I'm really not that good with math. And she said, I think we can paint over it. I'd like to do this. So this is in my cafeteria. I don't know how to make this go to the next one.
Just hit your
Yeah,
mouse.
I need help.
Technology.
Yeah. You gonna make it go to the next one? Go quick. We're gonna move.
It blows up, you're the point.
There you go. This is when you walk in. I asked Tammy at the end what her favorite character was. We selected pairs. I asked my teachers to help improve culture and kindness and life skills. I wanted to really focus on pairs. So you will see as we go through, all of my teachers picked a pair. They had no idea what this was for. I didn't tell them. So Winnie the Pooh, Piglet. I asked Tammy what hers was. She told me Taz. I am Tigger. If you're ever in my office, I like Tigger. So this is what you see when you first walk into our building. This is what is now in the office. I took a little hit on this because obviously the things that had been hanging in the office had been there for many years. And when they came down, the parents said, why in the world, why did you take those down? I said, well, we're trying something new. Once they came into the building, they really liked the changes. This is within the office when you go back, my nurse's station and in the hallway. This is where you start in primary. You'll see Jean picked my shadow in me. I had no idea what that was, but I quickly learned, as did Mrs. Grauman picked Dorothy and Toto. And I'll just let you look. But you catch the idea. You can move pretty quick. Okay, not that quick. The students love it. They love it so much. Just keep going. I'm going to talk as you go. They love it so much that within the first week when we bought this paint from Sherwin-Williams, I was reassured that we would not have to put a polyurethane over the top, that it would not break off. They lied. Within a week, students just walking by with their backpacks were scratching the paint. I thought Carol was going to have a heart attack when she brought this to my attention in the office. So then we spent the first 2 weeks of school, 2 weeks, on weekends, polyurethaning the pictures so that they wouldn't fall off. However, because I am not a polyurethane person, I did not know that it would dry brown. So now we are in the process of painting around the edges. That's okay, all of them work. We are now in the process of painting around the edges so that you can't see the polyurethane. You know, no good deed goes unpunished. But every staff member in our building has a pair.
Slow down.
Shane walked up to me. Now, mind you, I was there all summer bothering Shane and the custodial crew. All summer. There was not a day. I was there most weekends as well. And he comes up to me when Tammy requested that I put my staff members' pictures with them. Shane walks up to me and he goes, Shannon, my pair's not on the wall. And I'm like, dude, really? You were here all summer. So I had to walk him and show him where Tom and Jerry were. A lot of these our students are unfamiliar with. So the goal is on Friday, twice a month, we share clips of these pictures, Rocky and Bullwinkle, that show the character traits we want the children to know in reference to something that they see every day in the hallways. Some are super easy, like Hakuna Matata. That's a simple one. We've already used it in music already. Some of them are more difficult, but and they have no idea who they are. You'll see in just a minute. They don't know who Elroy and Jetson from the Jetsons is, but it's in the hallway. I have also been told by my painting crew, as you'll see, we have 4 Dalmatians. They're determined that we're going to have 101 by the time this is all done. And I don't know if you've ever lit a fire under anybody at Laurel, but I bet they sneak it in. So a student stands in the eye of kind to become the eye. Jalen Rogers did our Code of Many Colors. This is a program that she's doing through her university to make sure that every child going out to recess has a coat. She has already started, by adding jackets. She just put those up this week. It will become more coats, and that's all donated through her project. What? Yeah, keep going. How do you see them all? Fred and Barney. So Fred and Barney, we actually have painted over the spots that were in the primary hallway. And these are going to be painted over as well, just simply because it's too hard to paint around little bitty circles. But we didn't think the kids would know who Fred and Barney were, but they went running down the hall over this summer and said, yes, we do. Those are the guys off Pebbles. So because of the cereal, they know who Fred and Barney are. We were expecting the young student, the K through 3, to like them, but the biggest our 4th through 6 really enjoyed it. At our back to school night, we had almost 1,000. We had 300 students show up, which we don't have 300 students at Laurel, but we had over 300 students come. We did a scavenger hunt of the walls that I had told families about, and they came in, and we had to make more copies for kiddos. We had over 1,000 children and adults in the building the night of back to school. And our middle school kiddos were upset that they weren't here to see it last year. Like, great, Mrs. New, you wait until we leave to do anything fun.
Is there any place in there that doesn't have something?
Not really. No, not really. You can, yeah, the office doesn't have anything at the moment, but there's really not a space that has been untouched. We had leftover paint, so the teacher's lounge has teacher quotes because, you know, like, I threw a paint away. And then their shirts this year, their staff shirts, all say kindness matters and have their pair that they picked, that was their.
And the staff didn't want to job.
Yeah.
And there's the doggy.
Yep. And Dexter. Dexter.
You have some questions for me?
Wonderful.
Amazing job.
Wonderful.
Thank you.
And it really was fun just to walk down the hallway and take it all in.
Shannon,
Yes, ma'am.
you want to take that mic?
Oh, yeah, no. You want to do this, right?
Oh, yeah.
Mr. Isaacs.
That?
Very pleased to announce that Annette Taylor, a paraprofessional at Laurel Elementary, has been selected as September Support Staff of the Month. She has been with Franklin County Community Schools for 16 years. Ms. Taylor was nominated for this honor by 3 colleagues. When asked why Ms. Taylor should be considered for this recognition, they responded, "Annette can walk into a classroom and within minutes understand where help is needed and assist without being told what to do. She genuinely cares about the students and always puts them first. She never complains and is always positive. Overall, she's a hardworking paraprofessional who goes above and beyond expectation." Annette also teaches children's church at her ministry. In her free time, Annette enjoys spending time with her family and visiting the Smoky Mountains. And we asked her what she liked best. "I have been blessed to work with so many different students over the years. This year, I'm in the kindergarten room. I love the hugs, the smiles, the I love yous, and seeing the kids achieve little tasks each day." Congratulations. Yes.
My daughter's with me, Mrs. Ball. She's also a teacher at Laurel.
And that was one of my best subs when I was principal at the high school. I would always count her and count on her. She's almost there every day. We really appreciate you. Thank you. Now we get a picture.
Okay. So guests don't have to stick around unless you want to. You're free to go. We won't hold you here anymore. We thank all the awardees and the people that come to support them. Oh, there's her just husband. Okay, there's no statements from the public. Statements from employees? No. Superintendent's report.
I just have an enrollment update. This is information only. The official ADM count is not till Friday, but we are down 28 students as of today. We do have some good news when I say that. So last year Laurel was at 238. They're at 263 right now. Mount Carmel was at 220. They're at 241. And the elementary was at 467. They're at 444. Middle school was at 379. They're at 362. And the high school is at 758. They're at 724. So overall, down 28 students. But typically when I give an enrollment report, we talk about the graduating class and the incoming kindergarten, and that cohort doesn't line up. This is the first year in a very long time. Kindergarten enrollment was 173, and our graduating class was 171. So maybe we're turning the tide. I want to put a plug in one more time for the awesome job that the high school does. When I talk about that graduating class, how amazing they were, you had 7 students that graduate with an associate's degree. 24 of those different students had 1 year of college credits, and 64 students did an internship, with 6 being hired after graduation. So I would anticipate those numbers growing, but phenomenal job by all involved at the high school. So that is my enrollment update.
I have one question. Whitney, how much does it cost for an associate degree now? About? At a state?
It's about 20 credit hours, roughly. Yes, 60 credit hours, and what are credit hours going for now? About 1,000 credit hours.
$60,000.
Yeah. Sarah always estimates between 30
Okay, old business?
Last board meeting presented policies 2221, 2260, 2260.01, 2261, 2261.01, 2261.02, 2262, 2266, and that looks like a repeat. So I'm asking for board action tonight.
Any discussion? Need a motion to approve the,
So moved.
Francis? All in favor, raise your hand. All opposed, same sign. 7-0.
Last month I did bring the tag policy to you, and then once it's board approved, I submit it to the DOE. This is the first time it's come back for revisions in, 7 or 8 years. They are asking for the definition of a teacher be included in the policy. So we have added that. Indiana code dictates what that is, so there's no wiggle room as far as the language that we're going to be using. And the second line is the term license. We have not had that in there, and it needs to be in there. And it refers to a document that's issued by the DOE. So I met with teacher discussions team tonight and added those to the policy. So it will be resubmitted tomorrow and hopefully approved because Friday is the deadline. So if not, then I don't know what they're going to do. But everything else was fine. I just needed to add that. So I'm asking for approval of the revision.
Any discussion? Need a motion to approve the teacher appreciation grant distribution policy revision. Terry? Need a second? Grant? All in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. New business. The adoption of additional appropriation resolution.
Ms. Chavis and I are requesting the adoption of the additional appropriation resolutions for the Education and Operations Fund.
Okay. Is there any discussion? Need a motion? Sharon? Need a second? Terry? All in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. High school handbook changes. Closure number 11.
So handbook changes obviously were presented.
Thank you.
Oh gosh, back in what, March?
Thanks.
We've had some revisions. We took these to the teacher discussion meeting as well today.
So what happened is we had Friday schools listed.
Whitney, would you stand at the mic for everyone online, please? Thank you.
So what happened is when we looked at level 2 consequences, we had Friday schools listed in there. Well, the fact is we don't have anybody to run our Friday schools. Friday schools were after school. Your first offense was an hour. A level 2 was 2 hours. A level 3 was 3 hours. Well, that requires you to hire an employee to run that until 6 to 8 p.m. on Friday night. So what we've done is that's what is in the handbook currently. So what we would like to do is those Friday schools, we would like the chain of command. As you can see, it's kind of hard to follow unless you're looking at this, but your level 1 consequences, we'd like level 1s to be changed to what's called minor infractions. So we're not really changing anything, we're just labeling level 1s as minor infractions. Then what we'd like to do is if you follow the command, it goes, your first one, let's say I have holes in my jeans, day 1, I get a verbal warning from the teacher, staff, whoever. Second offense, on day 2, I get a teacher warning and a contact home. Third offense, I get a teacher warning and a contact home. Fourth offense, now these are only for level 1 infractions, or what we will call minor infractions. Fourth one will be a write-up plus then an after-school or before-school detention. Since we can run those now, Mr. Tucker is running those. He's doing after-schools on Mondays, he's doing before-schools on Wednesdays. So the kids have to be there an hour early or stay an hour late. Then after that, you're gonna pop down, as you guys can see, your consequences now down on level 2, which now are listed as your major infractions. So anything from level 2 to level 5 will be listed as major infractions. So as you can see, first time on a level 2, see where it says after school, before school detention. So what you've done is you've climbed the ladder in level 1 and you've made it to level 2 now. Or you've just done a level 2 infraction. So then from there, your second time is gonna be a before school or after school detention again. Then if you go into the next time, instead of a Friday school, it's gonna be in-school suspension. Then again, in-school suspension. Then after that, 2 to 4 days of in-school suspension. Then you climb the ladder and you go to your level 3 infractions, which you will see, then that starts out 1 to 3 days of OSS. So we're basically wanting to change Friday schools to in-schools, and then label our level 1s as minor infractions and our levels 2 through 5 as major infractions. So then what we're also doing is we're giving teachers an electronic copy to write up a student, and we're also giving them paper copies. Because if you're teaching, sometimes you don't have time to go to your computer. So I've made forms that are one sheet, that let's say I do something that's a level 3, you can sit down quickly, circle what my infraction is, hand it to the student, call the office, say student's on their way, I know exactly what that child has done, and I can reprimand them, and they can move on with their class without an interrupt. So it's a lot more work for administrators, less work for teachers. So that's what we're proposing. Oh, and then also, sorry, I gave you another sheet. The last sheet, the reason I have this in here is, as you guys know, when we were doing the out-of-school suspension program, we were going to the courthouse. We tried to contact them, I would guess 3 to 4 times roughly, to try to get that program back after COVID. We did not hear back from them, so we could not do that program anymore. So now the students are going home on their out-of-school suspensions, but a twist of that, when they were going to the courthouse, they weren't able to do their homework while they were out. Now that they're home, they are required to do their homework, and if they choose not to do it, then they get the zeros for that, but they do have the option now to do their homework at home during out-of-school suspensions. If they don't have internet and we know ahead of time, we're getting with teachers, teachers are sending materials down, we're sending that home with the student before they leave for an out-of-school suspension. Any questions?
When they went to the courthouse, did they take zeros?
Yeah, so what happened is they would go in there and those kids couldn't have anything on their desk. Absolutely nothing. And so then those kids would get out and it was...
They could still do their homework after
They could still
hours.
after, but they required them absolutely nothing while they were in there.
Okay, but there was still an opportunity to not get a zero.
There was,
Correct.
but we were not seeing that
Got it.
at all.
Fair.
And to me, I didn't understand why they couldn't do their homework, but because to me, that's punishment. If I had to sit in a room and only could do my homework, I would hate it. Any other questions
Any discussion?
Who enters this? Who keeps track of all this?
of the discipline? Me and Mr. Tucker.
So you have, I assume you have this all on your computer and,
Yeah, so what we do
Boom,
is
boom,
right
boom.
now we log everything in PowerSchool under a certain student's incidents that only administrators and counselors can see. And then we also have a running log of incidents on a spreadsheet that's shared with me, Ms. South, and Mr. Tucker. So if a student has already done like 3 level 1 infractions, for a teacher to know, hey, they wouldn't know if that kid was on the 4th, we email teachers directly and tell them, hey, if Whitney gets written up again, this will be her 4th infraction. Please send her to the office for before or after school. So me and Mr. Tucker are keeping track of that and making sure we email the teachers to let them know what infraction those kids are on.
Now, does a parent have an option to look under their child to see what they've had?
No, but they should be. So every teacher is documenting every contact that they're making with parents. So the first one is a verbal warning like, hey, don't do that again. We don't contact home on that one. Don't wear those pants again. If the student chooses the second time, that's why we contact home twice after that. And then the teachers are documenting that, and then they're blind carbon copying me or Mr. Tucker on those so that we can see that they've contacted.
Those log entries are
And then we log
internal notes.
Yes.
Okay.
And the question I had was, when you said that there was a write-up.
Yep.
As one, what effect does a write-up have on the student?
So a write-up, basically, it's online right now. I've created a misconduct form, and I've also now created a minor infraction form and a major infraction form. So those write-ups will go in, those come to us. We then log those into PowerSchool. Now, we do not, like if somebody said, I need to see records for Whitney before she goes to IU, is my stuff going to be on there? Do we print that off and send it? The answer is no. However, if somebody asks for the discipline log, it will be on the discipline log, but that is not asked for very often.
In what cases would we provide a discipline log?
Military asks for them sometimes. That's a big one that we get, or we sometimes get it from jobs. They want to see their attendance and typically their discipline records.
Do you have to get approval from the student before you can share that?
I always do, as a precaution. Not about to put us in that water.
Right?
Yeah, we do every time. So we'll call and say, hey, military has requested. Are you okay with us sending this? And then we get that permission either from the student if they're 18, or we get it from the student and the parent. But even if the student's 18, I still call the parent.
Any more discussion? Need a motion to accept the changes in the handbook?
So moved.
Terry?
Second.
And second is Beth. All in favor, raise your hand. Got you, Grant. 7-0.
So typically, we do all 5 school improvement plans in one night. So I convinced my 2 elementary principals, I said, could you have yours done early? And they agreed. So we will do 2 tonight and 3 at the next board meeting, so we don't. So this is late.
So the Mount Carmel School Improvement Plan basically has 3 goals. Our first goal is a special education goal for our students to show continuous annual growth in mathematics, to realign with the growth of the general education population, and to maintain the growth already established. Our benchmark for this year is that our MCS students, special ed students, will show growth in math of 2% during this school year. Our second goal is that MCS students will show continuous growth in the analysis of informational text to exceed the state average growth by 3%. And our benchmark for this year is that we'll show growth exceeding the state's average growth by 1% in the area of informational text. We'll use strategies such as ReadWorks, Read Theory. There's a lot of sources that we bring in with nonfiction text, current events and things like that to work on informational text. Our third goal is that we will accelerate learning to help bridge gaps that are evident in current academic performance. I think our iLearn scores from last year show that we're headed in the right direction that way, especially at our 6th grade level. We showed significant growth there last year. But working on things such as practicing math facts, working on the writing program, incorporation of the race writing strategy. So all of those things hopefully will help us to meet those goals.
Thank you.
Questions? Okay.
Mrs. New.
Laurel's 3 goals. Our first is an attendance goal. We moved up from 95% to 97% attendance rate. We are back to implementing attendance groups for our students that have over 5 days absence. We have those started already in grades 1st through 6th. We meet with them every Friday during lunch. Our second goal is to increase our RIT scores on NWEA by 5 points. Last year that was 1 point. We met that goal easily, so we bumped that up with a lot of discussion to 5 points. 2 and 3, our goal 2 and 3 are similar in that our goal 2 is for language arts and our goal 3 is for math. We have several things also implemented. We implemented a 90-minute block in math across the grade levels where we normally do that in reading. We are doing that in math as well to help lower the achievement gap in math. Do you have any questions?
On your attendance groups, when you say you meet with students, what do you do with?
Well, first we go over. So we have a student that, this will be our 3rd week meeting. We have jacket dollars and honey money, which is money within the school. And they meet with us if they have been in attendance for 5 days, which we have this past Friday. We had 5 students in my 4th grade group. All of 5 of those students received honey money for being there 5 days a week. That was a big deal. For 3 weeks, they had been there every day for students that had never made it 3 weeks without missing. So it's simply that chance to hang out with myself and my counselor, Mrs. Gutzwiller, which surprisingly they like. And for us to praise them and do cheers, and then we reward them with honey money.
Cheers.
Which, yeah, it was scary this week, because we had a student that had never made 3 weeks in a row, ever, as a 4th grader. So, Grandma even got to talk to us because we were so proud of him. But they just meet with us. We review, making it 3 weeks. We praise them. Hopefully that encourages those that didn't get the honey money to improve their attendance for next week. We're also doing a monthly celebration. So the class with the best attendance in primary and intermediate is going to get a snack of their choice. Prior to me, it was Oreos, but the children decided they didn't want Oreos. So whatever the winning class is gets to decide what their snack is. And then we're also doing celebrations every 9 weeks over on my Friday announcements for who has perfect. And perfect is perfect. They have to be there, no tardies, no leaving early. So those are the things that and it seems to be working so far. We haven't done it in 2 years. So we dug out the trophies, had to find everything.
Any more discussion? Need a motion to accept the presentation of the school improvement plans. Ms. Holman? Need a second? Sharon, Ms. Woslowski? All in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Transportation.
I'm awake. For the 22-23 school year, route extensions needed for bus 54 owned by LRT Transportation to deliver students who had previously ridden corporation-owned routes. Number 68, Ms. Chavis and Mrs. McCoy are requesting approval of a long-term extension to formalize this arrangement for the remainder of the current contract period. If for any reason we no longer need bus 54 to continue this arrangement, the extension will be discontinued.
Any questions? Any discussion?
Did this increase ride time for kids significantly?
No, it did not. It just made sense because of buses passing each other, and it allowed us to eliminate a corporation route.
Okay.
Need a motion for transportation for the bus? Ms. Foster, need a second? Terry? All in favor, raise your hand. 7-0. Recommendation to hire Fanning and Howie for the high school synthetic turf project.
Yes, in your board packet is a proposal. It's from the same architect firm that you approved for the chiller. I'm asking for approval to hire them for the turf project at the high school. We need to get this on their list because it will take some time to make sure that this is up and running for both soccer and football and the youth leagues in August of next school year. So,
Any discussion? Need a motion to hire Fanning and Howie for the high school synthetic turf project. Francis, need a second? Beth? All in favor, raise your hand. 7-0.
if the board would indulge me, I think I will skip board policy tonight, and we'll add it. I know, right? We'll add it to the next board meeting, so you don't sit here and me and read. So we'll move on to other.
Okay, other. Discuss the real estate owned by Franklin County School Corporation located at 1020 Franklin Avenue in Brookville, Indiana. The town of Brookville is currently using the property, and the county, Brookville is currently using it, and their lease is up at the first of the year, or the end of this year.
No.
Or the,
No, it's not up.
Nothing's up.
Nothing's up.
An agreement.
Yeah, okay.
County just wants to talk to us.
Oh, okay. County is interested in purchasing the property. Discussion only.
So does anybody want to step up? You can come together or to the mic, please.
Good evening, Board. Tom Linkle, County Commissioner. Jerry Wendell, Commissioner's also with me tonight. I'm just to announce we do have a quorum here, but we will not be making any official decisions. Any information we gather tonight will go back to our board meeting. All right, so, yes, so we have talked about getting the dispatch moved out of the security center. And I think that is probably one of the biggest things we can do for the safety of our county citizens, the law enforcement, first responders, jailers. It needs to be done, and we've had discussion of where to go. So we talked about going in the basement of our government center. We had a professional consultant come and look. He didn't pass that. He looked at your building, and we also talked about building a new building at the fairgrounds. But the best scenario that we think is your building. So we're here tonight to see what your interest would be in selling us that building. And if so, what kind of price tag it would be on it.
Can you, I know you addressed the town board, can you kind of go over what your feedback was from the town board? There were questions about that.
Yeah, so we offered the town the use of our government center. We'd give them an office space in our government center to use for their office until they get the Zimmer building transferred for their office space. And so that will work. They agreed to that. And then also, from now till the future, whenever they get something better, we offered them the use of our meeting room too at the commissioner's room. Because I don't know if you ever attended a town meeting, but the acoustics in that room is terrible.
Yeah.
You can't understand anybody, and it's terrible. So it would be to their benefit to use our meeting room. We've got a good sound system now, and the acoustics is good. So they was all in agreement to that.
Amber, if I understand you correctly, the board has two options potentially on the table. One, because we're two government entities, we could enter into the same kind of agreement that we're using with the town, or
Agreement to transfer or exchange any types of property that you would like between the school board and the county.
correct, or we have an option of selling that building to the county.
Correct.
Okay.
Do we have an option of like renting it, leasing it?
You do. It's a more complicated process.
But you're not interested, you would prefer to buy, correct?
Prefer to buy, because that building needs some work. We want to convert the basement of that building to like the break area and an office space down there. And that building's got some issues in the basement for being too wet. The air is no good. So there's going to have to be some landscaping done. The gutters need repaired, landscaping probably, and then maybe some perimeter drains put around that building and then go inside and waterproof it too. So I don't know if you as a board would be interested to putting all that money into that building. That's what I'm here to talk about.
I think from our perspective, the first thing we would need is something from the town telling us that they are going to vacate that building, because I don't think we can enter in any type of agreement or
As long as we
board vote or anything without having anything, because my understanding is the town has not actually given us anything or talked to us, so we
There
would
was
need that.
I was at the meeting and Mr. Wendell was also, but I think there was a motion to accept our plan, but there's nothing in writing.
Yeah, they would need to then
yeah.
come to us and say, or
Yeah.
give Tammy some sort of letter saying, we plan on vacating the property.
Yeah.
And then I think we
wouldn't, I think you would just want to sit down as a board.
Yeah.
In an executive session and discuss, and then obviously make a motion in a public meeting about how you want to move forward.
So I think we have to wait for that, right?
And then secondarily, as far as price goes, were you looking for us to do the repairs and sell to you as that, or were you looking for a discount?
I would think we'd buy it as is. That's how I see it.
Because I'm not doing any guttering, I'll tell you that much.
Yeah.
Amber, how does that process work when you buy it as is?
Real estate's always purchased as is, where is, whatever you got's what you got. It's up to the buyer to do the inspections necessary. It sounds like they're well on their way there.
Do we have to have an appraisal? No? Okay.
Not if we are selling or transferring to another government entity.
So how would you determine value?
We could request an appraisal. We don't, he asked if we had to.
Yeah.
We don't have to, but we can. And we probably should, once we have some sort of communication from the town.
That's the next thing. The town has to get a hold of us.
Yeah.
Or get a hold of Tammy.
I think that's the next
Yeah.
step.
I'll give the word to Curtis to give something in writing to your board.
Is that all you need?
You can just.
Is that what we need,
Is
Amber?
that all we need is
I
something?
mean, I don't know how the rest of the board moves. I mean, we're open to ideas to
Yes.
do things, so.
Good. I mean,
As
it's
soon as you deliver me that red Ferrari. No.
it's the most common sense thing for everybody is to put the dispatch center there in that building, next to the government.
What was the other places that you had looked at?
Well, I say, well, we did look at the old bank is getting ready to sell, was it this week?
Oh.
On Main Street.
Farmers
Mutual.
Mutual building.
Yeah.
Yeah, unacceptable. Good old building, but just won't work for us. And then, of course, I said we checked out the basement in our government center, but that's not enough room. And then the other option is to build a new one down on the property we have at the fairgrounds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's expensive.
Big bucks.
That's
Big
$1
bucks.
million
Yeah.
or more. Yeah.
Have you had someone come in for the sound and all the things that you're gonna have to have for?
That's his
Did
job.
he
The
look-
consultant is working on
Okay.
that right now.
That's
Okay.
Ritter, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And yeah, one of the big expenses for the taxpayers in general, as you all know, I am stuck completely in the middle of this. So I'm trying to act as a conduit of information on behalf of the taxpayers in general. One of the big expenses, if they don't have something here in town on a fiber line, the telecommunications cost is gonna jack the price sky high, which would be my fear at the fairgrounds or someplace like that if they
Yeah.
have to run a line across there.
And sewage and water.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
What's your time frame?
Yesterday.
Well, I was really busy yesterday. Well, obviously, we need something from Curtis.
Can he get something to Tammy tomorrow?
Well, he doesn't.
We don't
Well,
have
it has to
another
be a
board
notice
meeting
to vacate,
until
just- that's-
Doesn't
October.
make any.
Yeah.
We have to have a notice to vacate.
We can have a meeting, as soon as you get it, we can have a executive session and talk about it.
My guess, based on what the town said, is any notice would be sort of conditional at this point, that they would, I don't know if they're gonna commit to a date that they're moving out if there's not an incentive to move out, but I think they probably would give something conditionally, would be my guess, but
Yeah.
Tom will have to confirm that.
There's a lot of pieces of the puzzle to be put together, but yeah,
Start working on the puzzle.
that's it.
Sounds like it's gonna take teamwork from all three major governmental entities and
Yeah.
work together and get it done.
I hope so, yeah. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming, Mr. Wendell.
Thank you for coming, gentlemen.
Okay, board policies. next time. Okay, Mr. Palmer. Redevelopment Commission. Residential TIF.
I was just watching other people come up here. I've never had anything behind my back before. Which is actually probably pretty good in case you start throwing things at me from back.
Yeah.
Well, the reason I came here tonight was to bring you up to speed on thoughts on what to do about housing on Reservoir Hill. If you remember last year, we were requesting projects to apply for what they call READY funds, and I can't remember exactly what the initials are, but essentially what the state of Indiana wants to do is try to attract people to live in Indiana. And so one of the number one things is to have a house, put people in it. And if put people in it, hopefully they have kids and hopefully they go to school. But this town actually submitted that originally. And to have it work, they needed to have a sewer extension up there. To pay for that, they needed to annex the area and then create a single-family TIF district, or tax incremental funding district. They voted last week to not pursue voluntary annexation of that area. So that means the TIF district's out. That means they won't have the funds to float a bond issue to pay for putting the sewer up there to match the funds that READY would have afforded. And that's about $4.5 million that READY forwarded to us. That is considered one of the best projects that were in our region, and any region in southeast Indiana, really, because it did exactly what READY wanted. And that was to put a number of houses, what we were guessing was around 200. And we still think that's a reasonable number. So Bill Shermer and I were talked to the commissioners. A way to keep this moving forward and have those houses built here rather than built in St. Leon, for instance, would be to have the county recreate this single-family TIF district. And by doing that, we need to get the financials together. Nothing's been decided because we're not exactly sure how much money we'll raise. But that would allow us to probably then help pay for a bond issue that would pay for the sewer to go up the hill. And so that's what we're looking at doing right now. We're trying to get all the ducks in a row, but we want to let you know what we were thinking about doing. Because this one is primarily really to put people in houses, put new kids into school. This is not about bringing industry into town or the county. It's just bringing people here. And that's what the state actually wants us to do anyway. But I will say that if we don't put this together, there is a project in St. Leon that would involve expanding their water system and allowing more development to take place down there. And so, you know, where those kids will go to school.
That's in Dearborn County.
And so, and it won't be anywhere near the same number of homes. But, so anyway, any questions about this? We're just letting you know what we're thinking about doing.
I have several questions. One is, what is the average cost of the home?
I'm sorry, let me walk closer. I have bad hearing.
Oh, I'm sorry. The average cost of the homes.
Average cost of the home, it's going to be all over the place, but we're probably looking at no less than $250,000 per home, more like 300 or some thousand. There will be some homes up there that are going to be more in the $500,000 range. There's going to be a variety of development. It's not just going to be, hi, we have this field, let's cut it up into lots and put any old house on it that we want. So there's a number of developers that would want to work on this. One up near the golf course, there's one north of the golf course that is in the process of selling off lots, and rather than selling off acre lots, now we can sell off quarter-acre lots if there was a sewer up there. So we can effectively really blow the number of houses up that would be available up there. And and there's enough land, and the water system's already up there. There's a short extension we might have to do with water down towards the lower part. I think it's called Hogan Road, from there south on Reservoir Hill, about 4,900 feet of water.
Now, will the town be able to accept all of that into their system?
The answer is we believe so, but we need, again, these are details we need to go through, Rick. They are only at 50% of the capacity of their treatment facility. There's some maintenance they need, probably about $300,000 or $400,000, which might be worked into this. But the capacity of the system is there. And we know that because there were other things we were looking at doing in the past, and they said there was no problem accepting it. So, and in fact, they take a lot of wastewater from the Brookville Lake Wastewater District, and that runs down 101. And they renegotiate every year, but it's basically based on price, not so much on you have too much, but they have the capacity to handle that much. So,
Are there going to be condominiums?
I'm sorry?
Are there going to be condominiums?
There probably will be condominiums. I can't say for the developers, but I'm just looking at, if I were a developer, I would say a condominium is a better return on my investment because I don't take up as much land and I can build more of them. So I would say there has to be some of those up there.
From the aspect of school and students, though, a condominium, most of those families moving in would not have children, probably.
Well, it's hard to say, but
I mean,
Bill Shermer came up with a statistic for housing in general. And if you have, let's say we have 100 houses, to be conservative, they say half a child per house. That way you take care of the condominium, you take care of the larger homes and the ones that are in the middle. And you probably figure that the average family house, 2 kids, maybe 3, something like that. I don't count because I have 0. But most younger people, and that's what we're trying to get. We're trying to get people in here that are younger. As our community ages, which it is, and people are moving out of it, and they're moving into it. The elderly people, I'm not having kids. Even if I was able to, I was not having kids. I'm too old. And so, and the population here is aging. The average age is going up. And again, with the last census, we lost another 1% of our population. And we see that age curve shifting to the higher every time they do an analysis. And if you want to know, go to something called Indiana Stats. You can look that up on the internet, and it has all of that in there. It's interesting, the median income in Franklin County is $71,000. That's a lot of money. But the average income is $37,000. And it's interesting that the reason the median is that high is many of our people live here and drive to Cincinnati. That's what Indiana wants. They want people to live here, drive to Cincinnati, drive to northern Kentucky, come back here and live your life and have your kids, have them here. They're also hoping that by doing that, the talent pool builds up and people want to come to this area to create a business. And a business doesn't have to be a factory. Business can be a consulting firm. Business can be an engineering firm. And we don't think that that kind of business is going to locate here anyway. If you take a look at our infrastructure and things like that, big business, I mean, something like a Honda plant, we don't have any place to put it. We don't have the infrastructure to support it. And I think one in Southeast Indiana was enough for the state. That cost them tens of millions of dollars to bring that there, maybe more than that. So we're more geared towards being that suburban bedroom community.
How many houses?
We're guessing, well, I know one in particular, they want to do 96.
96.
But there's another room, one piece of property, if they do quarter-acre lots, they can do at least another 100, I say 200 there. So
Excuse me, John, just a minute. You're talking about all the development that is in the land that is up on Reservoir Hill, not only just going up the hill, but all the ones that are up there,
Yeah,
correct?
Yes, that's
Okay.
correct, because there's really not a lot of development to do
Right.
up the hill.
Right,
That hillside is not someplace that I would want to build a house.
right.
Too many times people try to do that and end up with a house sliding down the bottom of the hill. But it would be up there where the land is already
Yeah.
being developed and where they already would like to have more sewers.
Right,
anyway.
right.
So it's,
So you said about 90 houses, right?
well, I know of 96 now.
96.
But there could be 200, 300, and we're also looking at this, over a 10-year period, because the houses aren't going to pop up just like that.
Yeah.
It's almost impossible to do that. But the one that wants to build the 96 wants to do it on a regular basis, not just, let's build 2 and wait for somebody to come in. And these are not developers who just want to develop the land and walk away and hope somebody buys a lot. These people have plans to put buildings there, and that's really what we want. I don't want somebody to come in and divide it up and say, okay, I've got all these quarter-acre lots. They're for sale.
Well, John, they're already selling them up there, behind that one subdivision.
Yeah. And,
They're all,
If you look up where I live,
Right.
Fairfield Causeway.
Right,
Yep.
The Salem Ridge.
yeah.
A couple of houses are going in, but that's been up there for a long time. And it's a nice street up there. They got power in there, and they got water, sewers, but it's just sitting there. And, but again, there's a couple of houses going in now, but That's been there for years. I don't want to see that. What I want to see is somebody committed to come in and build something.
And there are,
You know, developed lots are a dime a dozen around here.
There,
Council are not.
yeah, there are ways to incentivize that in the structure that people are already discussing as far as tying the development to structures that encourage people to actually build out houses on them and not just leave them as vacant lots, because we don't need that. And I think everybody in the group is well aware of the need for kids, and the way the funding formula works for the schools, that
But
we can't have all just condos or all mansions if we're
Yeah.
not gonna have families with kids.
if
That's
you
what
do
we need.
90 homes, and as a low estimate, it's 0.5 kid per house, that's 48
45.
kids. That's 48 kids times 7,000, and that's
Okay, that would be
$300
fine.
$336,000.
That would be fine. You could count that money if,
They all went in at one time.
well, first of all, you don't
But-
know the age of the kids. They may be younger and not go to school. Second thing is, they may or may not even attend school, as homeschooling is a thing. And then we also have the problem of alternate districts of people wanting to go to those. If they build in St. Leon, almost assuredly, they
They're
would
gonna
go to East Central.
Yep.
But as far as that location, I mean, there are no equations to give us number of students we would receive to bolster that.
No, that's just an estimate.
Yeah, but what I'm saying is, even if there were 48 kids, let's say half of them end up going there, what are we giving up to get this?
How many years will the TIF last?
I'm sorry.
How many years will the TIF last?
It
You're gonna make
depends on
this-
the bond issue you have to support, but I would say 25 would be max, I believe.
25.
What could be the minimum?
10 maybe. It depends on how much money you have to pay off the bond. For instance, whatever bonds you float to handle your work, it depends how much money you can bring in to pay those off and how long they last.
How fast?
Yours might be 2 years, 10 years, but when it comes to this, it really depends on the project, how much money we have to raise, and then what we have to raise to pay for that.
So if you issued a
Same thing.
10-year TIF, then property tax for the next 10 years goes back to TIF to repay that bond?
With
that how that-
When the bond expires,
It's done.
if the bond expires and the TIF district quits paying, then yes, we can dissolve the TIF district. So, I don't know all the details about that, but
Can you
essentially
expire a
it
TIF
does not
early?
have to go on forever.
Can you expire it early?
I don't know the answer to the question, so I'm not gonna answer. I just said I don't know.
How do you determine when a TIF is going to be dissolved?
How do I determine?
Yeah, if it's going to go away, or whether it's going to stay. I mean, do you have the option, let's say if there's a 10-year bond, but tax go up because it's developed, and you keep that money, is there any guarantee that after, let's say, a 10-year bond, that we would see that tax increase come back to the schools?
Well, the interesting thing is, I don't know how much of your taxes are actually based on property taxes and rates. Do you have any idea? Because a lot of the things that used to be rate-based for school financing have been eliminated by the state.
Yeah.
There are some things that are still there, and I'm not sure how much that is. So I don't know how much money you'd actually recover from this. For instance, the TIF district we have now around Golden Road, in 10 years, we've only accumulated about $250,000. So there's like $25,000 a year taxes that we pulled. $25,000 and your budget would disappear almost immediately. If it's just a drop in the bucket. I don't know what you can recoup if the tax rate goes back to, forget what we call them, but essentially the library's included with you, things like that. So a
We
lot of
have
things
tax
that
caps. So,
Right.
you're looking at residential, you're looking at farm or businesses, they're all capped, so, it's not gonna fluctuate.
And
That's also one thing, just in general, about financing in the county and in the town as well, that everybody thinks that if we build a whole lot of new houses, the tax revenue is really gonna go up a lot. But DLGF will not allow you to do that. For instance, you can have an average about a 5% increase per year in your budget, the one that we're going through right now in the county. But if we had a big industry move in, let's just say it was worth $1 billion, we wouldn't raise the tax money we could, we wouldn't be able to increase the tax money, the levy that we could raise by more than 5%. What would happen is the tax rate would go down on everybody's property. So it's interesting how DLGF tries to balance these things out. In fact, it used to be that you could go to DLGF and ask for a special dispensation. Now, it's been 20 years since I was on council, so I don't know if you can still do that or not. But if you had something coming up, such as moving the dispatch center, and you knew it was going to cost more, you could go ask them, could we temporarily raise our rate to do that? So unfortunately, the taxing, the situation is complex. And you can't just say, because I do this, get rid of this, and it'll come back and you'll get it all. You just don't know. So you have to go through a formula. And that's why we pay a consultant. I'm sure you do too. But we have the Reedy group as our consultant that helps us balance that out. And we went from being in a lot of trouble about 7 years ago to now having a good surplus in the county. And so we're able to do some things we couldn't do before. And so that's been helpful. But taxing in Indiana is not simple. And it's largely because they're trying to hold taxes down as much as they can. But even though they've done that, we evidently have a huge surplus on the state level. And I would much rather have seen, instead of giving me $200 back, that they giving it to the schools and other places like that that need it, because I'm not missing the money. You know, $200 sounds like a lot. But divide that by 365 days, that's less than $1 a day. Most of us waste that buying candy, you know, a cup of coffee, stuff like that. So, sorry to get off on a tangent, but I think they ought to take that surplus and put it places where they need it, rather than just trying to give it back.
Yeah.
And not just you, but I mean, there's a lot of organizations. I mean, even law enforcement, volunteer fire departments. I mean, I hate to say that a guy has to sell chicken to afford to buy a suit that lets him go into a burning building. That's crazy. I'm sorry. It needs to be financed another way, and we don't do it. We say, go sell more chicken. And one guy said, well, do you want me to sell more chicken or go to training? And I said, I prefer you go to training. I don't know what everybody else does.
And training's not cheap either. It costs more and more.
So anyway, the situation is this. This is something we're looking at trying to save this project from the standpoint of making sure the houses go here. And I have had people say, well, how do you know people will move here? I don't know if you've ever done this, but about 8 o'clock one morning, I had to go to Connersville. And so I'm heading up Route 1, the northbound lanes with a little bit of snow on the ground, hardly any tracks in it. There was no snow in the southbound lanes. People from Connersville are driving through Brookville to get to northern Kentucky and Cincinnati to go to work. People in Franklin County, about 90% of the people not employed by government or schools, actually leave this county to go to work and come back. We just want to continue that and get more of them here and get younger people here so that we don't see this drain. Because the one bad thing is this: if you don't have people move in, the taxes will go up on everybody because prices go up. You know that.
Yep.
You know, with your expenses, you can't say I'm only going to pay some guy so much for paper.
Yeah.
He's going to say this is what paper costs. And too many times we get stuck in this thing about, if I make a change, if I do this, my taxes will go up. Your taxes will go up if we don't do anything.
Yeah.
And there's nothing we can
Well,
do.
everybody says, you know, kids leaving schools and our ADM was down and everything, and they're blaming the schools. But that's an economic development problem. That's what that is. And the more that we can just get even the thought of building houses, you know, you got a place up there to do it, and you have an opportunity to do it. And
A lot of economic development,
yeah,
and also develop for the schools, is create an environment where it can happen. That's really what this is about. Create an environment where it can happen. Do we have to help sell it? Sure, we do. We need to probably market Franklin County better than we do.
I have a question.
So anyway, if you
I have
don't have any other questions.
I have a
you have a
question. Yes. So you say that
Yell at me.
you say that the average income for a younger family is around 70,000, but really people in the county are making about 36, and you're talking about the lowest the house will cost is 250,000.
There's another
That's
debate. There's another debate. It's a very interesting subject that you bring up. There's another debate going on right now. I shouldn't say debate. Another group gets together. In fact, we have a meeting in a couple of days to decide what affordable housing really is. Because we know there's an issue here, and part of that is if people are in a bad economic situation, where do they live? And I said, okay, what is affordable housing? I asked that at the last meeting, and they said, well, what do you mean? And I said, what is affordable housing? How much can you afford to pay? I said, so if I look at the 71,000 median income, there's a general rule that 60% of that could be spent on housing. Okay, that's $42,000. That's a ton of money. A lot of our people don't even make that much money. So then if you go back to the person making $10 an hour, or maybe 15, then we're starting to talk about $12,000 maybe that they can afford. $1,000 a month, maybe. But that doesn't include paying for a car, transportation, food, things like that. Economic development also, we're exploring how to get affordable health care for people. And that doesn't mean health insurance necessarily, but there's a ton of programs out there that people aren't aware of that they could actually get help. For instance, it's easy to get health care for your children in Indiana. You might not be able to afford it yourself, a mother and father, but they can actually get it for their kids if they fall below a certain income level. And a lot of people don't know that. So we're trying to put together a program and make it public and give you numbers, addresses, whatever we need to do to get you in touch with those things. And so that's this whole thing, the schools, healthcare, affordable housing, it all goes into how do we make Franklin County a place where people can afford to be here, want to be here.
But if they're gonna build them houses up there and say it costs $250,000, they're gonna probably have someone that's ready to buy that. Because they're not gonna let that
No.
build it and let it sit.
No.
No, they're gonna have someone in line, okay, I'm gonna build a house, I got a buyer. Boom, build a house, got a buyer. So
The only problem I see with that is if we as a school corporation are trying to attract young families, we're talking about young families being able to afford $250,000, $300,000 homes when maybe they are just starting out their careers, they're starting to have kids. The affordable housing is an issue that I can see happening if, you're building homes $500,000, $700,000 up on that hill. Really, my question is how many of these 96 homes will actually be in that lower range where we can attract?
I would say the 96, none of them will be, because this particular developer has a vision of what he's trying to develop.
And that's, as a school corporation, my concern is if none of them are in the lower part of that building, we're not going to be attracting young families.
Well, that's only if you assume the young families are not making any money. Again, we're trying to attract people that can live here but work at a high-paying job someplace else. That's what we're after. And it's sad to say that, but it's the truth. But that's what Indiana wants. That's this building of the talent pool. They're scared to death that people are going to college and not coming back. We already see that here. People go to college and they don't come back here because unless you're a teacher, unless you're a lawyer, unless you're a medical person, there is no place for you to work. I'm a chemist. I'll let you talk in a minute. But I'm a chemist, and I came here because of a house. I like antiques. I was looking for an antique house. I found one. I only moved here, though, because I could still drive to the Cincinnati airport on Monday and get on a plane and fly to California, do my business during the week, and come back here on Friday. And so I understand what you're saying. I understand your concern. We need to find a way to fix that problem. But that means that we are basically telling people you're going to stay on the economic level you're at. And we don't want to do that either. We want to help people go up. A lot of the programs in Ready at this point are really trying to get people to the point where they can be put back in the workforce with more skills. And God knows we need more carpenters and plumbers, air conditioning guys. I've been sitting with no air conditioning for almost a week now because they don't have enough people to come out and take care of me. They've been there. They tell me what's wrong with it. They don't have enough people to come back and do it. So I think boosting the program with the Career Center up in Connersville is a wonderful thing to do. We need all of these people. And so when I was young, I worked in a restaurant to learn how to work and to work my way through college. Did I stay there? No. I did something else. And even after I got my degree, I had 5 jobs in the first 7 years. That's a lot of jobs, isn't it? And I asked someone, why? And I said, because everyone paid me more money, or I learned something to allow me to get more money. By the time I finished, I was at $200 an hour consultant. and I had a great time doing it. But I started out in a family with a nutso father, divorced, remarried, another nutso guy, stuff like that. Everything that you could think of going wrong in my life did. But my goal was not to stay at that level where I had to have that $200 a month apartment. My first apartment was $95 a month. I got my house cheap, but right now it's worth a heck of a lot more than $95 a month. So the idea is we need to incentivize and provide an environment where people can grow. And some of them you can't help too much; they just won't take it. In that area I grew up in Southern Ohio, and Appalachian heaven. But we had a lot of poverty, a lot of it, and it was endemic. You couldn't get people out of the cycle. Many
Okay.
did, I did.
Yeah. All
Anyway,
right.
he wants to say something.
What, John?
Yes.
Aren't there also a lot more opportunities because of COVID of people who are running businesses and working from home who can make the high dollars?
Huge amount.
And they're not older; they're younger.
Yeah. In fact, several people have moved to the county to live here, and they are working from home at those high.
If they have the internet.
One young lady, I call her young because she's younger than me. She's actually from Laurel, but she lives over in Batesville right now. But she is a healthcare worker, but she's more in the consulting stage, and she makes quite a bit of money. But she wants to move back to Laurel, and she's going to build a house and do that. So here we have somebody who's actually going to do it, but it took her forever to find the land to build the house. She's been living in Batesville for a year or two. She wants to be here, and her kid's here. So, so you're, good point.
So one thing in your formula that you was talking about that young families can't afford the $300,000 homes, I brought that up too in a meeting, and and I was told that what will happen is the people that's living in a $150,000 home in our community may want a new home, and that opens up a cheaper home for the new young family to come to. So if housing is here, it will help. You know, it's you build it, they will come.
That's a good way to put it.
One thing on this has been early it's not early in the development, but it is in a lot of ways as far as sorting out the details. There's other things that may be on the table trying to get the match and the funding. But one thing to keep in mind about the TIF and about development is the way the school funding formula works, because this got forgotten at some point in the past and it set the county back. At some point, somebody came upon a study that said that new houses don't pay for themselves because they don't generate enough property taxes to pay for the services. That evaluation did not factor in our current school funding formula, where maybe, a house only brings in $2,000-3,000 in property taxes, but if there's a kid in that house brings in $7,000 per kid on top of that. And somehow that got lost, and I think, the commissioners have realized this and are trying to fix some of those issues. And that's something that's in that school funding formula, that $7,000 per kid is outside of the TIF. That doesn't get factored in at all. So that money's not going to get captured even for a brief period. If a kid moves in, that comes into the school funding formula.
But the key word in that is if.
You can hypothetical anything. I think if you put more new houses, it's safe to assume
Well,
you're
yeah.
probably going to get some kids.
There's no way around other than being hypothetical.
If we don't do anything, we're never going to grow. Right. That's, I guess.
I'll tell you, Francis, I think what I'm astounded at is once these areas opened up there, the one area I know, they just got it ready for people to buy lots. And I think probably 5 or 6 people have already bought their lot. And
I think we're talking about the same place.
yeah,
Yes.
and it's astounding to me that most of those people that I know are young people that decided to stay in Franklin County. Their families are here, and
Once you get that trend going,
yeah,
it'll roll a little
You're
bit.
talking about the transfer of students, not the increase of students.
what do you mean transfer?
If it's a young couple that already have kids in our school system and they move there,
No, these are young kids The young kids that I'm talking about have babies and are having babies.
And that affects our school formula from 5 years down the road.
It's better than
Not at all.
nothing, isn't it?
I don't know.
Well,
If there was an industry nearby that would locate, and we knew that was going to happen, and this would fill up, there's almost assuredly a formula that you could come up with. But what we're saying is build it, they will come, but where are they coming from? If they come from a house that's already there, and they're a young couple, that student would have already been factored in for a future anyway here. So how are we adding to the student count? I mean, that's what I just don't get.
I think the idea is that then the house they're leaving from, a new family would come in, and that's where your new
You
potential
pitch
is
this,
coming from.
you pitch
Is
this
the
on
theory.
quality.
Well, again, it's kind of like,
It, it's a quality of life decision. You pitch families on moving here on a quality of life. I mean, my wife, I do work here, my wife doesn't. We wouldn't, I mean, we moved in, she works in Cincinnati, she's an engineer, she's in the same position as John is. There's no way she could get a job here. There's no, we want to live in a small town. You can attract those types of people, but that can't get jobs here. There's limited jobs here, and as you develop that, you're going to have more jobs developed to service those people. Maybe you get more businesses back in the community if you have more people and more kids. There is a chicken and egg problem, but if you don't do anything, you're just managing to spiral down the toilet.
Correct.
and Cincinnati's moving west. I mean, I used to live in Bright, Indiana, and Bright grew because people wanted to live out there and work in Cincinnati, 30-mile drive. Now the businesses are moving out towards Harrison.
Harrison's the
and
same
into
way.
Dearborn County, and so.
Yeah.
They're calling Harrison the
It's-
new Corrine.
Yeah.
As they come out this way, it's more places to work.
There's also the attraction of moving to a small community where you can get good basic education and be satisfied with what we're teaching their kids.
And hopefully safe.
And
Safe.
that's what I think Franklin County provides, is we've got a good school system.
Han.
Any more discussion?
Yeah, Sarah,
School board, I'm a bottom line person, and I just thought you might want to ask, is Mr. Palmer looking for a letter of support? Is he looking for financial support? Is he looking for the school to give up your 15% pilot?
Actually, what I was looking for tonight was just to let you know what we're trying to do. There's nothing set. We would like you to be happy with the idea, but I'm not going to ask you for that tonight, simply because I don't know that the program is finished. And so we still have some financing and things like that to look at. I mean, it's, we
I
went through
have
some-
no problem with making a motion to, well, I'm not gonna make the motion until afterwards, but I think we should give you a letter of support, because they are right, if we do nothing, but just because you do something doesn't mean it turns out well either.
But I don't think
Well,
we're ready for
I
anything
don't
like
think
that
so,
because
Francis.
they don't know any.
This is just for discussion.
Yeah.
And until
Well,
he
and-
gets more information together, this
But
is.
if you do end up wanting to support it with just a letter, that's fine. That helps elected officials make good decisions as well, you know, are you in favor of it?
I think Francis too, I think that all of us as a board, we need to talk about this. Just my opinion.
Let me give you one other good piece of news. You already know about the fiber optic going into the county, right? Last year, we had about 20% of the population hooked up with high-speed internet. By the end of November, we'll have 80%. And by the next year, we'll probably have everybody.
It ain't at my house yet.
Get it?
Not at
Not
my
at your
house.
house, yeah, that's because you're a mean person.
It's
Actually,
not
the way it's going.
He lives near a big city.
Calling and asking an answer down the road.
Spectrum communication, well, Charter Communication Spectrum won a federal grant. And that federal grant said, install this stuff where nobody else will go. And so, for instance, there's a gentleman on Yellow Bank Road that's 3,000 feet from the road. He said, oh, you don't have to put it in. He said, I'm not gonna use it anyway. And I said, you don't understand. We have to connect your house according to our charter, but you don't have to hook up right now if you don't want to. So he said, sure, go ahead. So they ran a line 3,000 feet from the road to his house. And so if it runs past your house, they will hook you up. If for some reason you don't want it, they'll go around you. But it's a situation that is such a huge change in this county. And I think that when it's finished, no more worried about hotspots being sent out if the
Good.
kids had to stay home.
That's good, John.
Yeah, so it's, and also there are low-income incentives built into it. You will be able to connect for $0 if you have a certain level of income, because you'll be subsidized by the feds through this program. The only sad thing is that it does look like I will be the last one in the entire county to be hooked up. And not just because of where I live, but there's an area right around me that some company grabbed that we don't know. Can't even find anybody to talk to that the feds awarded. It's right around the lake. And I even had the Spectrum guy say, well, that house is in Union County, and we're going to go there next. To get there, it looks like I have to go past your house. And I said, Chris, I appreciate the effort, but that house is actually in Franklin County. So anyway.
Might beat you out on the last person, though.
Yeah, I wish I weren't. Yeah. But anyway, I'll leave you with that bit of good news. Go ahead and consider what I've told you, and let me know if you do want to tell us you like the idea. But in the meantime, we're working on the financing, try to see if we can get this to work out. Because just because we have a house built tomorrow doesn't mean we have enough money to pay a bond payment. So we have to have some way of doing that. And so it's with any development. You know, if you want to build 96 of them, you got to build 2 first, and then you keep going. But it takes a little while to get that done. So we have to figure out a way to make those bond payments for the first couple of years before we actually have a lot of revenue coming in. Well, anyway, thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Thank you, John.
Y'all have a good night.
Yes, it is.
Legislative updates? Grant? Legislative updates?
No legislative update.
Okay, future agenda requests? None? Recognition and acknowledgements? We're done? Okay. This meeting is adjourned. Next regular school board meeting is at 7 o'clock, Monday, October the 10th, 2022 at the Franklin County Administration Building at 225 East 10th Street in Brookville. Thank you all to who all is listening. We appreciate it. And everyone have a nice evening.